Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video. Going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's first video, it's going to take us into the start of 2019. So we're going to go into the beginning of the new year with the week to 10 day updates now. So I'll talk you through everything that's going on in the stratosphere, all the latest developments. You'll see what's happening there. We'll have a look at weather next week 10 days, and also CFS V2. That's starting to update. It hasn't been updated for a few days, but they're beginning to get the updates out for that now. So I'll show you what that is forecasting as we get through into January. But before I do anything else, I'm going to say big thank you to our latest patron. So, Alison Lachlan has become Gazworthy's latest patron. Big thank you to Alison for becoming our 52nd patron for Gazworthy. As I say, we've got 52 patrons now. Alison Lachlan is our 52nd patron. So, big thank you to Alison for doing that. If you would like to join Alison and the other 51 patrons and become a patron for Gazworthy's, all you need to do is come to the Gazworthy's patron page. This is it. I'm on the page right now. We link to this at all the pages at Gazworthy's and in the description at YouTube. So just come here, sign up for a patron account, and then you can give an ongoing monthly donation to Gazworthy's. So by doing that, you become a patron. You get a shout out in the videos. We'll give you a thank you, and yeah, that's how you become a patron for Gazworthy's. We have also had a donor for Gazworthy's. So the latest donor for Gazworthy's via PayPal is Chris Foster. So a big thank you to Chris Foster for becoming a donor for Gazworthy's. So patrons like ongoing donation and PayPal. This is Gazworthy's.me PayPal page. That's like a one-off donation. So if you would like to give a one-off donation to Gazworthy's and help us fund the website, then all you need to do is come to the Gazworthy's.me PayPal page. And again, I'm on this page right now. So we link to this at all pages, Gazworthy's, and in the description, you just come here and you can pledge whatever amount of money you would like via PayPal. And again, you get a mention in the videos if you want one. If you would rather stay anonymous, that's fine. Just leave a little note with your donation and let us know that you'd rather not have a mention. But otherwise, you'll get a mention in the videos. And a big thank you to all of the patrons and a big thank you to all of the donors for Gazworthy. It's something very, very kind and very special that you have done for the website and for myself. So again, big thank you to Alison Lachlan, our latest patron. Big thank you to Chris Foster, our latest donor. And a big thank you to all of the patrons and all of the donors for Gazworthy's. Right, let's get on with the video, and this is how things are looking at 30 HPA in terms of the stratospheric temperature over the North Pole. So 30 HPA is one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere. We can see that the grey line is the trend line this time of year. The black line shows how temperature has been performing at 30 HPA over the North Pole. So we had quite a marked warming actually a few days ago, but now we're beginning to cool things down. That was expected. That warming was not the sudden stratospheric warming that we've been talking about in the videos. It's just like a minor precursor warming in some way. So we are beginning to cool the temperature down actually over the North Pole at 30 HPA right now. And it's the same story at 10 HPA. Actually got a little bit colder than average 10 HPA. That's right at the very top of the stratosphere. And we're actually a little bit under the grey line now at 10 HPA. So it does look as though temperatures at the moment are cooling down. As I say, we did expect that, and the actual southern stratospheric one that we've been talking about is still over Russia and Siberia. This is from the GFS at metroseal.fi. You can see these bright red colours here over Russia. That is the temperature shooting up by many degrees at 10 HPA at the moment. This is going on right now. This is the 23rd of December. The blue and purple colours here over the actual pole and down into Greenland, that is those cold temperatures and the polar vortex at 10 HPA. So what's going to happen is that, as we've been saying, over the next few hours, this southern stratospheric warming over Russia is going to intensify, and it's going to start heading in towards the North Pole as well as we get through to Christmas. This is Boxing Day. See those bright colours infiltrating into the North Pole, pushing the blue colours out into Canada, the North Atlantic, and into Europe too. That's a displacement of the polar vortex at its roots. In the extended range, do we split the polar vortex on this latest GFS run. Let's have a look and see what happens. No, we don't. We just keep those blue colours meandering around. Displaced further south than you would expect, but no split of the polar vortex there on this GFS run. The GFS does not want to split the polar vortex at 10 HPA. That's how the GFS is picking things up. This is the ECMWF from the University of Berlin website. This is the 10 HPA forecast for Christmas Day. Again, we see that very intense, very marked warming moving into the North Pole. The black cross is the North Pole it's the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere, and you see these bright red colours here. That's the very intense warming of the stratosphere that's going on at 10 HPA at this point, moving into the North Pole on Christmas Day. If we run through to Boxing Day, again, you see very dramatic warming is taking place. So the JMA chart that we started the video off with, that's going to look very dramatic, I think, with that black line really lifting up a long way as we get through to Christmas Day and Boxing Day. And you can see, again, these red colours infiltrating into the North Pole. So blue colours with cold temperatures are pushed out into the North Atlantic and into North America and Europe. That's how things look on the 27th of December. The southern stratospheric warming is continuing over the North Pole at this point. And then we go through to the 30th of December, 192 hours, and obviously something quite dramatic has happened because all of those blue colours have been moved down into kind of like the mid-latitude, so all the blue colours are around here, and they've been displaced, and we've got these orange colours sitting up over the top of the North Pole itself. So temperatures remain pretty warm there at 10 HPA going through towards the new year. That's how things look on the 1st of January at 10 HPA. Again, I'm not sure we get an actual split of the polar vortex with this 10 HPA. I think the ECM is certainly a lot closer, though, to splitting the polar vortex than the GFS is at the moment. But even on the ECM solution, I'm not sure we get back. I'm not sure we actually split the polar vortex. We do get close to it. But over the North Pole, we have got, again, this major warming event still there on the first day of 2019, New Year's Day, seeing again that warming of the stratosphere over the North Pole. If we go lower down to 30 HPA, you can see this is also expected. This warming is also expected to move down into the lower levels of the stratosphere, down to 30 HPA. That's closer to the troposphere. That's the boundary where weather is taking place, of course. So it's all still on course. There's been no deviation, no changes overnight. The only question mark, and it has been a question mark this all the way along, is whether we are going to split the polar vortex or not. That's how things look at 30 HPA on New Year's Day. And this looks like we probably do split the polar vortex, actually, 30 HPA, because we've got a deeper area of blue just there and a deeper area of blue just there. So possibly lower down at 30 HPA, we might be talking about a split of the polar vortex by the new year. And zonal winds are going to go into reverse as well. So this is how the zonal winds are forecast by the ECMWF. So again, we've got a real crash of the zonal winds coming at 1 HPA. That's the very top of the stratosphere. Obviously, a major reverse of zonal winds going on there. Lower down to 10 HPA. That's this blue line we see again. That is going to be going into negative temperature, going down to 0 just there. So a reversal of the zonal winds at 10 HPA, and also quite a marked weakening of the zonal winds at 30 HPA now being forecast. Well, not a reversal yet at 30 HPA, but getting closer to it. So this is a very major event that's taking place. It's already underway over Russia. It's going to move into the North Pole, as we've been expecting over Christmas. It's going to reverse the zonal winds. It may or may not split the polar vortex. There is still a question mark about whether we're going to get this split of the polar vortex. But in any other case, it is a very major event that's going on here, even if we don't get a split of the polar vortex. Now, once this has happened, we're going to be looking to see whether we get a response within the troposphere to this warming. What we're going to be looking for is northern blocking, because when you get a sudden stratospheric warming, can translate back 2 or 3 weeks later to a bubble of warm air in the troposphere. That bubble of warm air will set up a blocking area of high pressure. So we'll be keeping a close eye on the Arctic Oscillation Observed and Forecast chart just here. The black line shows where we've been with the AO. Red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the AO to go. So we've gone through quite a negative phase of the AO, actually, going back to November. You can see we've generally been in a negative period through November anyway. The first half of December went rather more positive with the AO, and right where we are right now is actually on the negative side again with the Arctic Oscillation. We're forecasting the AO to go towards neutral around Christmas, but by New Year we are seeing signs perhaps of a drop in the AO, a movement in towards negativity of the Arctic Oscillation. So when the AO is negative, you've got high pressure, you've got blocking up over the pole. Blocking is the route to push cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitudes. When the AO is positive, and you're going to have low pressure up over the pole. So very often when we get cold, particularly in North America or Europe or Asia, when it's going to be cold there, you'll have high pressure over the North Pole, and you will have a negative Arctic oscillation. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking for after this sudden stratospheric warming has occurred, to see whether we get the tropospheric response. One of the first signs that we are getting a tropospheric response will be the AO going into negative territory. The NAO is the same idea, so the black line shows where we've been with the NAO, the red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. We're around neutral at the moment with the NAO, but we are seeing signs, perhaps within the GFS ensembles, that the NAO might start to go into negative territory through the first week of January. It's not definitive at this stage, and you would expect it to be, because the sudden stratospheric warming hasn't even got into the North Pole yet. It's still over Russia and Siberia, so it'll be a little while before the models start to latch on to it and begin to start to calculate what the implications might be. And by the way, while this is going on, expect very poor model reliability as well. The models will be really struggling as this major event is taking place in the stratosphere over the North Pole. The models will really struggle to calculate what the impacts are going to be. So expect the reliable time frame to decrease quite markedly over the next few days, and expect lots of swinging and lots of different options cropping up the extended range of the model output as well. So that's just a little bit of a heads up that while these events are going on, model reliability does plummet. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on the AO and the NAO once this sudden stratospheric warming has occurred, to see whether we're going to get a tropospheric response. GFS ensembles are looking like this. We're looking at Aberdeen today. So if the wind's going to go into the north through early January, one of the first places that we'll feel it, we'll see it, will be Aberdeen. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Aberdeen. We're starting off close to average at the moment. We're going to go much milder than average with the upper air temperatures really through to New Year. From Christmas through to New Year, we've got the upper air temperature going very substantially above average. Now, through the first week of January, we have got a real split taking place within the GFS ensembles then. So we have some ensemble members that are keeping things very mild, but we do have several ensemble members that are going cold and potentially even very cold through that first week of January. That might be the GFS ensembles beginning to pick up on the very first impacts of this sudden stratospheric warming, starting to play around with what the implications might be if blocking starts to set up over the North Pole. So it could be that that's the first signs of a sudden stratospheric warming. It could just be a coincidence, but definitely there are several marked very cold outlier members there through the first week of January for Aberdeen. We may do an ensembles watch, you see. It just depends what time we've got. As far as precipitation is concerned, very dry really over the next couple of weeks. Hardly any precipitation to be seen. There is a little bit there around the 27th of December, but overall it looks like we're in for a pretty dry week or two now. The temperature anomaly is being forecast to be above average on the 23rd through to the 31st of December, New Year's Eve. It's going to be a mild week over Christmas. Temperatures above average, not just for the UK, but for most parts of Northern Europe as well. Precipitation anomalies drier than average, so mild and dry really sums it up as we're going through to the end of the year. That's how the GFS is looking for Boxing Day. So high pressure there over the UK, keeping things mostly dry and settled. I think we're going to have a couple of cooler days tomorrow and Christmas Day away from the west, where it'll be a bit milder there. It's going to be a bit cooler Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but by Boxing Day it's going quite mild again as we infiltrate a lot of cloud into that area of high pressure. High pressure continues to dominate weather as we run up towards the new year, gradually weakening in the north though a little bit, so just goes a bit more unsettled there for Scotland on the 30th of December, but then very quickly we're building the ridge back in again as we go up towards New Year. And for the south, there's going to be very little rain at all once today's wet weather is out of the way. That's how things are looking at day 10, which is the 2nd of January, with high pressure just to the southwest. And again, we bring round these mild winds from a west or southwesterly direction. In more extended range, we move this high pressure out into the middle of the Atlantic and start to pull down much colder winds from the north. So on the GFS ensembles, this would be one of the colder solutions, most definitely. High pressure pushing out into the middle of the Atlantic. It's not becoming a northern blocking feature at this stage, but it is on the move, this high pressure, and it is turning wind into the north. And a real cold plunge is moving through much of Europe, much of central northern Europe, being plunged properly into the freezer there. That's how we finish up with this GFS run. And again, we've got the high pressure just out to our west, low pressure is across central parts of Europe, and very cold air has plunged down through much of Europe. There's the upper air temperatures for Tuesday the 8th of January, and they're looking very, very cold indeed. We've got the -10, -15 Celsius isotherms there across most of Europe. We're just on the periphery of it in the UK. It is pretty cold, but the coldest of the air is just over the other side of the North Sea, and there's the thickness chart showing that the 510 thickness line, this blue line just here, is sitting just to the east of us on the other side of the North Sea. Now, if we could run on another day or so, it's possible we might start to raise pressure up over Scandinavia. If we start to get high pressure building up there, we know we've got a very deep cold pool, severely cold air is sitting just to our east, and if we started to raise the heights over Scandinavia another day or so further on, we would start to pull in very, very cold easterly winds. That's one of those charts that's a bit in between. It could go either way, but certainly we are really on the edges of a freezer, and most parts of Europe have plunged into the freezer there through the first week of January. So maybe colder times are ahead. We'll have to wait and see. This is how the parallel GFS run is looking. Again, lots of high pressure running up towards the new year, particularly for England and Wales. Some influence from the Atlantic for Scotland, Northern Ireland. Just a little bit more unsettled there, but basically high pressure is in control to the new year, and even beyond the new year, high pressure stays very close to us. Not till the very end of the parallel GFS run that we start to move that high pressure into the middle of the Atlantic, just maybe hinting at beginning to pull down some slightly colder air from the northwest. GEM, the Canadian model, looks like that. High pressure dominating over Christmas and running up towards the new year as well, keeping lots of high pressure going. So all these charts are very samey really. High pressure is going to be a major player going up to the new year, most definitely. ECM looks like that. High pressure again dominating the weather over Christmas and running up towards the new year as well. Even more intense with the high pressure with the ECM. Just high pressure sat over top of the country. So even the northern parts of the country, no weather fronts sort of plaguing northern and western Scotland. That's high pressure all the way. Very intense area of high pressure. And that could be a slightly colder solution as well, with that high pressure more centrally located over the top of the UK. There's a better chance of getting an inversion going on there. An inversion region is where, although the upper air temperatures are relatively mild, you can see the upper air temperatures there looking pretty mild under that high pressure. Down on the surface, because the high pressure is keeping the winds very light and heat is radiating out into space very quickly. You're probably filling it up with fog as well. So that allows the temperature to become much colder on the surface compared to aloft. So the ECM is a colder solution today out of the three main models for GEM, the GFS, the GEM and the ECM. The ECM is the colder of the solutions running up to New Year because that high pressure is in over the top of the UK, whereas the other two, high pressure kind of a little bit centred southwest, which allows slightly milder air to come around the top of the high, particularly for northern parts of the country. The high pressure major player up to New Year, and then it will be a case of where does that high pressure go through the early part of January. And talking of that, let's just finish off with the CFS V2. So these are the 500 millibar height anomalies. I broke it down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 22nd to 28th of December. We have above average heights in the week ahead through the UK, dominating the weather, bringing lots of dry, fine and quiet conditions. We go through to week 2, very little change. This is the 29th of December to the 4th of January. That high pressure is in over the top of the UK. So up to New Year, high pressure dominates, high pressure holds sway, going to be loads of dry weather. And of course, if that high pressure is centrally located over top of the country, although the upper air temperatures will be relatively mild, down on the surface, it might start to become quite cold. Then the high pressure moves. This is week 3. It takes us from the 5th through to the 11th of January. And suddenly that high pressure has gone north. Is that in response to the southern stratospheric warming? It could possibly be. The high pressure is moving to Greenland, and we've got a trough of low pressure then plunging through northern parts of Europe. That's turning wind into the north. That looks much colder as we go from the 5th through to the 11th of January. You would expect to start pulling down much colder air, particularly into northern Europe, but we are on the edges of it, and we could start to import some of that colder air into the UK. And then week 4 looks like that. 12th to the 18th of January. The high pressure is moving towards Canada then. So the high pressure moving out of Greenland is going over to Canada. That would deposit very cold air down into much of North America. But for us, we're actually on the milder side of the blocking. So we've been starting to pull in milder winds from off the Atlantic. It's one of those situations where the AO and the NAO would be very negative, but we would be on the mild side of the blocking. So that's a milder and also quite unsettled scenario as we head up towards the middle of January. I suspect the CFS and even the shorter range models for GFS, the ECM, they will continue to be playing around with options and scenarios for January over the next few days. So as I say, model reliability, both long range and short range, is going to be thrown into some turmoil while this southern stratospheric warming is taking place as these models try to calculate what the impacts will be. It looks like we do get a shot of cold northerlies in week 3, but by week 4, the blocking is actually moving over to Canada, and we're turning things a little bit milder, but also unsettled there. But as I say, there'll be a lot of chopping and changing on the developments of this southern stratospheric warming, what impacts it has. There will be lots of chopping and changing over the coming model runs, and it's just going to be a case of fasten your seatbelt, and it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, I suspect, a bit up and down with the models over the next few days. Right, so that's your first video done and dusted. Come back later on this afternoon when we're going to have the ECWF and Meteo France seasonal update for December. That'll be with you probably around 4 or 5 o'clock this afternoon. We may do Ensembles Watch this evening. Not sure if I'll have time or not, but I'll keep you posted on that on the Gasworthies social media accounts. Alright, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.